on my mind.
Somebody in a parachute has just landed on the edge of the ring. Holyfield bit by a dirty Mike Tyson.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of The Boxing Show with me, your host, Rob Tebbett. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I'm joined by the usual duo of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clark as we review last weekend's action and look forward to a couple of cards this week. Barry, how are you?
Yeah, I put an invoice in the other day. You haven't paid it yet.
Have I not?
No. So
I'll tell you what, I'll do that.
I thought we'd get it out of the way now,
Okay,
privately, rather than
Okay.
make a big deal about it. But
No
so I'm
problem.
not saying a fucking word until you pay
I mean,
me.
paid mine straight away.
Yeah, I know.
Just so
I
you
noticed
know.
that.
Yeah.
There's a guy, I don't want to say who he is, because everyone want to work for him, but he literally will pay you within like an hour.
Really?
Yeah. But I'm going to stop selling drugs now, because
Anyway, how are you, Andy?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good.
Good weekend of boxing. You were in Manchester, of course, for Savannah Marshall and Franchon Crews-Dezurn. Good evening for you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I was there all week. I went on Wednesday and everything was in walking distance. It was really well organised. And I went to Champs Camp for the workouts on Wednesday. I'd never been there before. So I really enjoyed that. Joe Gallagher gave me a tour. All of the photos are up. It's still the same machines that they had 30 years ago. They're thinking about replacing them. I think a museum actually wants them, but they still work. And for the fighters, to be working on a machine that previous champions have worked on, every now and again it might just make you find that bit of inspiration. So that's why they've kept them. And I really enjoyed that. They've still got this huge cupboard full of these old VHS tapes with about 15, 20 fights on each one in the index. The old boxing yearbooks, notebooks from pre-box rec days. I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought the promotion was good. It really helps when you've got someone like Crews-Dezurn, because she absolutely plays her part. And I do think that on the female side of it, they've got a really good cast of characters who completely get that side of it, a lot of them, up towards the top end. And they give you what you need, but they absolutely know where the line is as well. So you never if you're TV, they don't make you too nervous, but it can get edgy. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The fight on the night was...
Claressa Shields, because she's a bit too laid back, isn't she, really?
Claressa Shields is a force of nature. I think that's probably the best phrase to use to describe her. I mean, I think she probably does make you slightly nervous at times, because she's got that manner about her whereby she will just do whatever she wants to do, and you can't be entirely sure what that might be.
You could hear her, like, in between.
Yeah, so could I.
You could hear two people. You could hear her, and then on one of the undercard fights, you could hear Spencer Oliver, because he was doing Talk Sport. He must be sat right behind you again.
us, yeah,
but you could hear, on one of the quieter fights, you could hear him really, really clearly, but you could hear the Claressa throughout the whole.
Yeah. I said to Andy Scott at the end, I said it was like having a female version of Tony Bellew, because Tony he supports his pals, doesn't he? And that's what he's always done. And you're going to get that. And I never minded it. I always found it entertaining. But all in all, it was a good night. There was a decent crowd in there. The fight itself was what we thought it would be. She's a complete handful, Crews-Dezurn, and in a 2-minute round, kind of fending her off and finding the space to really get something done is not the easiest thing in the world. I did think that Marshall made slightly heavy weather of it in places, but she definitely landed enough clean that by the end of the fight, it was pretty clear to me that she'd won. But because she relentlessly comes forward, Crews-Dezurn, and we had international judges, there's always just that slight question mark in your mind of whether they're just going to give people rounds for coming forward, because as we know, people do that.
Which may have been the case, of course, with a majority
for
decision.
the 5-5, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting one with the singing of the national anthem before the fight. Barry, what do you think you would have done if you were getting ready to fight and your opponent started singing their national anthem?
I wouldn't give a shit, to be honest.
Would you not?
No, not to be truthful. I'd too much to worry about, isn't there? Though if I was fighting her, I wouldn't care. After that performance, but no, I wouldn't. It'd be a bit weird, but I wouldn't. But once you're in that moment, once you're there, whatever goes on doesn't affect you really. You're if it does, you're in the wrong place. I would say that. I say that all the time, even like weigh-ins and press conferences when they go, oh, looks like the bottle's gone, or you got under her skin or his skin. Thinking, if you know you've got to fight this person, so like if them staring at you at the weigh-in makes you lose your bottle, you shouldn't be there in the first place. That's the truth of it. You're in it now. I don't understand how you can't get out of it. You just got you've accepted all the things that you know might happen already. Especially when you're fighting something like a punch or something. That's sometimes they try and intimidate you, don't they? But you're there now. You're not going to be intimidated now. That's the whole part of the sport, I think. So if someone was singing, maybe I'd sing along. I do quite like the American anthem. I watch basketball all the time, and every game they do it every time.
Every game.
Every game.
Wow.
They do the anthem, so it is quite a thing. And I sort of do my own version of
I know
just like that, actually. Just like that.
I know what you mean about
my
fight
dog
week,
attacks
though.
me and everything because I'm a cat.
I've always thought the same thing, which is that I enjoy fight week, and it's just good fun, isn't it? And you're around people, and for me, it's more about the undercard and people you don't really know, like Jeffers, for example. Mark Jeffers, I didn't know him, so you spend a bit of time around them and see if you could figure out whether their confidence is real or whether they're kind of hoping to do well or whether they're expecting to win. But the top of the bill, when they're really experienced, it's just kind of fun. And at the press conference last week, Savannah Marshall had quite a lot to say, and people were talking about, wow, that's evidence that she's got under her skin, and I just thought it isn't. It's just that she just thought,
and she's learning the game a bit more, isn't she?
Yeah, and she's just thought, God, I'm not just going to sit here again and just listen to her for 15 minutes. I've had enough of this. This is just boring. Because when you got someone like Crews-Dezurn who's so kind of like seamless with her chat, which she is, then I think it would just get a bit boring if it's not really your game to kind of engage. You would just get to the point where you'd feel like you had to, and I thought that's kind of all that was. I never read too much necessarily into fight week unless somebody completely loses their shit, and then even then you've got to wonder whether it's just a tactic
in this era.
Yeah. After Taylor Lopez, I think I'm going to leave my psychology cap to one side after the roaring success.
He's a different case though, isn't he? There's a few out there where you just think, I honestly don't know what's happening inside that head of yours. I mean, they're impossible to read.
And some fighters, they need chaos around them to function, to be honest. Some fighters need to be angry, and you think, I got into this game, but the angrier they are, the more focused they are. Some people, it doesn't work for that, but some people like Lopez, all the lunacy around him because they've grown up around it, that's all they know.
It's more comfort, isn't it?
That's all they know, isn't it? So, if there's not, like growing up the council estate, you see that all the time. Doors are always, when I was back in the 80s, all the doors were open. It was just madness. There was people were wrong, mothers were wrong with other mothers about their kids, and it was just, but it was madness. So you were used to it. So things like that didn't bother you, and I guess that's especially in America, that's the sort of version of it. People like Lopez are used to just madness with his dad all the time. So if it's not crazy, I don't know what we're talking about.
That's all right. So we have our kind of our little.
We just want to talk about the actual fight, do we?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You were in Abergavenny this weekend, weren't
you? I wasn't. I wasn't actually, but no.
were you not? Were you lying to me? Were you not? In Abergavenny
I was
this
weekend?
Mate.
I was unemployed, didn't I?
Oh, well, I thought you were there this weekend. But anyway, we'll move on and talk about Savannah Marshall versus Franchon Crews-Dezurn, because that's where we've started because of Andy. So we're going to come over to you, Barry. We're very sort of matter of fact about certainly the Cederroos fight beforehand. I think we did actually. It was a rare good week for us on the whole prediction front, apart from Jared Anderson, who we all picked to win, but in a very different way. But we predicted a wide points decision for Savannah Marshall. It wasn't quite wide, but clear.
I thought it was.
It wasn't wide on the card.
Yeah,
rather.
no. I thought, I couldn't see how you could give it to anything to Crews-Dezurn. She didn't do anything. I thought she was poor. I was thinking Savannah Marshall was poor, but I have to reevaluate who I think she is. I think that's what she fights, I guess, because that's 2 fights in a row now, 2 big fights in a row that she leans over her front foot, bends to the right slightly, doesn't she? I think but it takes away that long right hand because she can't twist from the hips and throw that long right hand because she's leaning over. So it's going to be an arm punch. She leans on the front foot, but not with the wide stance to lean back and make you miss. It's to throw a jab. She's given away so much reach. The height's not an issue. So much reach that she allows the opponents to get close. And so she's not smothering her work, but she's taking away some of her assets by doing that, and it makes it harder work for her. I don't understand why she's doing it. I don't understand why Peter's then allowing her to do it. I thought he would be having her more upright, and you want to be. You think when you're upright, you're a target, but when you have a long reach, you want to be connecting properly, and especially for a guy who trains heavyweights, you want to be almost like square shoulders. You can transfer that weight really quickly, and those punches are nice and long and right down the route. Especially when you're punching down, it's hard to be accurate. So if it's straight, you got more chance of hitting the target. And because she carries power, relative, I think that was true to say, then they'll feel it. And because a lot of women, it seems, don't carry power. I know that's ironic coming from me, but then they're not used to getting hit hard. So you hit them hard, it's a culture shock. You part the panic. So I think, a lot of things I thought she was doing early in her career, maybe I was seeing it slightly different. Maybe I got it wrong, all the way she used to box to the way she's boxing now. It looks like she's getting too close and closing the distance, and made her, though she went widely, I thought, but it could be even more comfortable. I thought, I honestly, God, I think she's boxing the wrong way. I'd say that. Though she won, she's unified champion, and it's all those things. She did a good job in that respect, but I think she can be so much better.
You mentioned there, it's like the last couple of fights, Claressa Shields and now Franchon Crews-Dezurn. But yeah, it seems as though that is something that's kind of crept in. Maybe she's not been able to shake it from the Claressa Shields fight. I don't know, maybe she thought that because Franchon Crews-Dezurn's coming forward so much that she'd be able to meet her and stop her. But
maybe it hasn't creeped in. Maybe that's how she boxed. We just never saw it that way.
Never had the opponents to kind of...
Yeah, maybe, yeah. No, listen, I think... after looking, I don't think she ever beats Claressa Shields. I think that much. I think we've seen that now from this performance as well. Even though she won, and she won clearly, and she did beat a unified champion. I know I said a lot of things on the last podcast, not very nice, but she's still a unified champion, and she beat her out the sight. I thought. I don't think it's remotely close. So it's going into the Claressa Shields 2, which I presume is what they're trying to make. Will fill her full of confidence, but I still think the mistakes weren't rectified. I think this was the perfect fight to get that blueprint right again in preparation for the next big one. That's what I thought. That's how confident I was that she could win this fight. That it was almost like a practice run for a much better version, a totally different version of a fighter.
Just a much better fighter.
Much better fight, yeah. But still having to instill those good habits in a live fight.
Andy, it was kind of, it looked as though, we discussed it on the preview show, so something like the Savannah Marshall, the Claressa Shields playoff, who was going to get the rematch with Claressa Shields. It's now Savannah Marshall. Barry's just said there that, he doesn't envision Savannah Marshall being able to get the revenge win in the pros. How do you see that fight taking place if it happens next?
It's going to be very difficult for her because I think Shields is around those weights. You look at her and Katie Taylor, don't you? And they are the two best. No one's ever come remotely close to beating her. And if they had 2-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds, I still think that would be the case. But in the 2-minute rounds, particularly, she's just not ever going to really tire. She's so sharp and defensively pretty solid as well. It's just going to be extremely hard to beat her. As for the fight, Shields wants it in America, and I can understand why, because she's been over here once already. But I think the reality is that it'll be over here because they can make it a bigger event here. They can draw a bigger crowd here. They could do all of the things that they did last October, and that's, as far as I understand it, that is the plan. I don't think it's kind of really imminent. So it could be that either one of them could do something else in the meantime, have another fight in the meantime. I'm not absolutely sure of the rough timetabling of it. But as you get closer to it, you can state a case and make more of a case, and Savannah Marshall's better at 168. It's more her natural weight and all that kind of stuff. And Shields has been down as low as 154, but she hasn't been undisputed at 168. So why wouldn't she want the fight? You know, I don't see a problem with making it, but I just think it's a very, very difficult fight to win, like it was at middleweight.
Okay, well, Andy Purrawell was in attendance this past weekend in Manchester. Here's what Claressa Shields had to say to him about a potential rematch with Savannah Marshall.
I think I'm going to knock Savannah Marshall out, especially if we fight at 168. I'm going to be stronger and more hydrated just as she will be. But she has to know that sometimes just because I fight at 60 doesn't mean that it's always easy for me to make. Just because I fight at 54 doesn't mean it's easy for me to make. I sacrifice and bust my ass in camp too for the weight. Now, not having to do so much, I'll be more powerful, I'll be stronger, and I'm ready to take her for a ride.
There's a bit of a back and forth in the post-fight press conference here with Savannah. Just walk me back.
She too cocky, man. She too cocky. And, you know, after I won my fight, where was it? Up in Cardiff, she jumps in the ring, or she jumps on the side of the ring talking about if you fight that way against me, I wipe the floor with you, da-da-da. And she thinks it's okay for her to steal my moment, so I didn't want to steal her moment. I want her to know, since you keep talking about me, I'm smoking your ass. It ain't it's going to be no close fight. It ain't, I don't do close fights. It's going to be a unanimous, or going to be a knockout. That's it. I don't have no love for her. You understand? She's still saying, "Oh, you just fought, you didn't fight." I fought in front of 12,000 people. 12. And she's still, where are we going to fight at in Detroit? Somewhere. We're going to fight somewhere in the U.S., or your big tall ass won't be getting no rematch, because why would I come over here and smoke you again as if you deserve a rematch against me anyway? I didn't lose majority or split. I won unanimous. So therefore, do your homework and do your improvements, but I'm smoking her again. It don't matter.
So that was Claressa Shields. I think it's fair to say that she envisions a rematch with Savannah Marshall in the pros, going pretty similar to the first one. Barry, what does Savannah Marshall have to do differently? I mean, we've kind of mentioned about her style that she seems to have, maybe it's always been there, but showed in the last couple of fights. What does she need to do to be successful in a rematch?
Everything I've been saying forever. You've got to keep it long. See, 2 minutes will suit her. I know you tend to think, no, she's a boxer, she needs longer time, but if you got to get taller. It sounds silly when I say it, because you're going to make a bigger target, and you've got to be throwing full extension, and you've got to be transferring your weight from one side to the other, twisting from the hips, making it nice and long, because Claressa got good at her body movement. She slips and she fires off your punches, but if you're long, if you're stepping with the jab. And then like I tell you who does it, right? We'll talk about him later. It's Jaron Ennis. He'll step with the punch, but he's light on his feet, so he steps back. So when he throws the jab, he comes in and gets full weight on the shot without going bam. But he steps in with it and he steps back. So then you know when he comes back, he's back where he started from. He's in a safe place. And then but then also because he's light on his feet, he can throw back again with the right hand or another jab or whatever he wants to do, because he's brilliant. And I think that, not the same upper lateral movement that he has, but she could do that a bit more rigidly. Bam, step back. And then first time Claressa then fires off that jab, because she'll watch the fight before and she's been in with her, she'll think, well, I'm going to fire off her punches now again, and a slip, and I'm going to come back in with the combination and just beat it up like they did the last time. So it seemed. You're not there. You go bum, 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 bum. And if she rushes you, you take another step back, and then you, dare I say it, pivot to the left. You boom, one step, two step, turn. And she got to turn with you. It's quite simple. It's easy, but it's not simple to do. But I think that's it. And then if she rushes in too soon, you take a step back, go all the way on your back foot, you push off, keep it long, don't shorten the distance, keep it long, and let her walk onto your punches. Theoretically, it's quite simple. It's easy. How can you not do that? No, but I think that's the way. Trying to push it back, which I understand the reason why. Or push it back. It didn't work. You got too close. So unless you can do that, unless you're going to do that with a solid jab and step and keep your foot there, so when you sort of throw the jab, you turn your left foot in slightly, inwards. When you punch, you go boom like that, like what Tommy Hearns used to do. He used to turn his left foot in, Sugar Hill, and put like that, and he proper step into it. And you feel everything on the shot. Unless you're going to do that and then make a pusher back with the punches. But if not, if you can't do that, do that. What I'm saying, step in, step out, step in, step out with the shot, and make a reach. I think I got all excited then for a little while.
No, it's good. I liked it. I like the energy.
Yeah.
I like the energy.
But
It's good
I think
stuff.
for the sport it would be good if Marshall could beat her, because you look at Taylor and the defeat to Chantel Cameron. I'm not saying I don't count it, but she was up at super lightweight. But at lightweight, Serrano nearly beat her, Pursoon nearly beat her, and that's why she's been the bigger box office draw, Taylor, because she's been in those kinds of fights. And Shields, to her credit, hasn't. But I think it would be really good if at least we had something that was properly really close and
You need that
contentious.
jeopardy, don't you?
If she got it, or if Savannah Marshall could beat her, it would be a good thing.
Well, that's what made the first fight look so intriguing, and that's why it sold out. Is because that was her first real rival.
Yeah.
Someone who actually could genuinely beat her. That's what we thought. Well, I picked Marshall to beat her. I did, to be fair. I underestimated Shields' ability to make you miss punches because she had it too easy. And I thought the people she's faced, same with Shields, obviously Savannah Marshall, got a similar sort of boxer they face, but just nowhere near her level. And this is now the first time she's boxing someone who we seemed was close to her level. So you need rivals to make it. She is the number one, Shields, pound for pound, if there's ever such a thing in women's boxing. Clearly, you know, but. There was an argument with Taylor of all time. Again, you can argue that again because Taylor's boxed better opposition by far, you would feel. But she's also maybe had more than one loss. That she's had the rub of the green, and Shields has never looked close. Shields had what should have been the first real super fight of their generation was against Christina Hammer, and it bombed. We did it on Box Nation.
remember, yeah.
I thought Hammer was going to beat her again. No, I'm not a hater of Shields, but it seemed that way. No, again, but I thought because she's an upright boxer who's in and out with her feet and throws lots of punches, I thought that would work. And to be fair, Shields, like, it was a horrible fight to watch, but Shields totally dominated. Enough to get. She dominated so much that you criticised her for not doing more. It was too easy for her, and you could do more now. She could have done a lot more. She could put the foot on the pedal and made Hammer really, really suffer, but she never. And it was a scrappy affair, and that's pretty much what Shields does. She's untidy sometimes, but massively effective. And the way she moves her head and upper body, no other woman boxer around her weight does that.
Yeah, and it was sort of Andy was saying earlier. She manages the rounds really well, and it's difficult to win those rounds against her. Let us know how you feel a Claressa Shields Savannah Marshall rematch goes. Me personally, I think if Savannah Marshall was going to win, it would have been the first fight. I just don't really see it now. I think that Shields will probably take more from that first fight as well than Marshall did. But anyway, moving down the card from Manchester this Saturday, Andy, going to come to you for Natasha Jonas, who is in the belt collecting business and continued this past weekend with a stoppage win over Candy Wyatt. What did you make of her performance?
I thought it was a perfectly good performance, but it wasn't in any way a test for her. And I said that throughout the week, to be honest. I was always issuing the caveat that I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to Candy Wyatt, but there was just levels between them in terms of boxing ability. Candy Wyatt, a very pleasant person, enjoyed chatting to her, but I felt that she came in kind of hope rather than expectation, and she managed to get the stoppage. Natasha almost got it in the first round, and it's a great achievement to become a two-weight world champion, but I don't think she was getting too carried away with anything there, Jonas, because that was a regulation day at the office. The thing that stuck with me most about that fight was Wyatt's corner, right? They left her in there against McCaskill to take a beating until the referee stopped it, and then they did it again on Saturday. I turned around to Matt Macklin after 6 rounds and said, if you're in that corner, are you starting to think about this now? And he said yes. And they just wouldn't stop it. They just wouldn't stop it. And like I said on commentary, if they were British Boxing Border Control licence holders, I think they'd have questions to answer. And it just fucking annoyed me because she's really brave, Candy Wyatt. You can see that. They got her back in the corner and they asked her that most ridiculous of all questions to a brave fighter. Are you okay to continue? She says yes, of course she does. Yeah. And the corner man says, all right then, and then just send her over the top into another fucking hail of gunfire. Yeah. It really wound me up because what they shouldn't be allowed, they shouldn't be in that job. I mean, it's just a disgrace.
When you send her out and then you throw the towel in, that way then she doesn't quit. And she gets, in her mind, she saves her pride. You've saved her, and you got it, and that's what you do. You send her out, and then for the first decent shot she takes, I mean, 2 rounds earlier, then you throw the towel in and go, that's it. Because she did well. She did well to get past the first round. To be fair, but Jonas's feet and the fact that she punches correct just was set it apart quite clearly. It was an easy night for her, well easy. Lauren Price is next.
Yeah.
So I
mean,
said
could be,
on another
could be.
podcast, right?
You can plug it. We're all friends.
They're terrible payers. Sky. Yeah. Terrible. Like I don't even know how much they owe me. Like not a lot, but like I don't know when I'm getting paid.
Collection
day.
day.
Real issue. Really is. But I said on there a while back about Lauren Price. I said, well, I chuck him in Natasha Jonas. I know it was a weight debate because they're all hopping weights. I mean, like you tend to think, oh, that's ridiculous. But like Natasha Jonas moved from super featherweight right up to super welter. To be fair, because there was easier fights up there than there were the weights coming up.
Yeah, but she's not that
and
weight,
certainly easier fights to make. I would say that. But so why not? I think on Saturday, Lauren Price versus Natasha Jonas is a really competitive fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the movement, because that in and out feet that Natasha has, she won't have the same success with Lauren Price. The power might be a factor. And the fact that she has a lot more experience, she is a good fighter, and all that will make her a massive favourite, you would feel. But it wouldn't be under the realms of reality if Price could get a win.
You do feel like that's. I mean, you look at other options, and Sandy Ryan boxing Jessica McCaskill. If Sandy Ryan could win, then obviously that'd be amazing if they could box for undisputed. But there's the obvious, normal, tedious problems with different promoters, different networks. I know that she could definitely do super lightweight, Natasha, Chantal Cameron, but again, you've got the same problem. I think that fight against Taylor was maybe the start of a new, however many fight deal between Cameron and Matt Troom. I don't know that for sure.
I'd just like to say congratulations to women's boxing. You've now joined the same cesspool as the men's.
So the
easiest fights can be made.
So the easiest fight to make is obviously Jonas Price, because they're both with the same promoter. But I'd imagine that Natasha will want to examine those two other options in full. If Sandy Ryan beats McCaskill, or even if she doesn't, she will want to forensically look into them.
She won the biggest financial thing. She'll take Shields before she takes anything else, if that's offered.
Well, they asked Claressa Shields about that on Saturday, and she was very matter of fact and just said that Jonas doesn't belong anywhere near her, and she'd chin her. She said that on air, basically. Yeah.
She's brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah, she is great. Glad I didn't have to interview her. But anyway, before we move on from Manchester, it was an upset on the undercard. Or what was it? Upset at the bookies? I know there was a few learned people in the industry who were looking at Mark Jeffers.
Thanks.
Well done, Barry. Little hat tip to you. But Andy got the win over Zak Chelli, and given Zak Chelli in the way that he's kind of gone about in his career, and he had that really big win over Anthony Sims Jr., that's and it's never a good time to take a loss, but that's a bad loss at a bad time for Zak Chelli, isn't it?
It is, and I felt for him because he had that fight fall through against Lerone Richards at the end of last November, and he found that incredibly frustrating. They got him that fight against Sims, which was a great bit of matchmaking, and he got the win, and he was really good. And he was an underdog. We know that there are technical flaws there with him, but he's aggressive, and he's decent to watch. And I like his kind of vibe and intensity during fight week and the way he just goes about things. They're good to be around. And then he was supposed to fight Hefferon for the British and Commonwealth, and he'd been gearing up for that, and then that doesn't happen. And again, you've got to kind of pick yourself up a little bit. And I did think that however hard he would have tried, and he would have tried everything he could to not be a little bit flat or not underestimate Jeffers, and this isn't to take anything away from Jeffers, I think that it still did just happen a bit, because Jeffers started well and Chelli never really recovered from it. And I think I said on commentary at one point, I'm not saying he looked spooked by power or anything like that, but he just had a look of a man who just thought quickly, shit, I'm in trouble here, because this lad is on it and I'm maybe not, and maybe I can just really dog this out. And that's what he had to try and do. But Jeffers was really good, and I did say during the week that I thought he definitely would win, but I knocked around with him a bit at the workout, so I made a point of that because I don't know him. So I sat down and had a chat. I know his training team a bit, the Jennings, and had a chat with them and Kev Marie, the manager, because you want to find out a bit about this person and who they are and whether they really think they're going to win when someone takes something at short notice. And I walked away from those conversations absolutely clear that they definitely thought they were going to win. And then this wasn't a win, lose or draw, so long as I box well, my stock will rise. Although that was definitely true, that wasn't why they were there. And he was good. I thought he was really just when you look at his technique and his fundamentals and just his all-round game, I thought he was. I mean, he's an addition, isn't he? You know, he can. I'd imagine what will happen now is that was for the Commonwealth silver, which I've never heard of that before. But Zak Chelli is English champion, and that wasn't on the line as far as I'm aware. But it could have been, because Jeffers is English and it was 10 rounds, so he'll now get stripped of that, and that'll become vacant. And maybe Jeffers could fight for that next, or maybe he will just go into that fight with Heffron now, because he's beaten Chelli, and Chelli was mandatory. So I'm not entirely sure how that all shakes down, but that would be really interesting, because Heffron used to be his gym mate, like they both used to be with the Jennings. But all round, it was a massive night for Jeffers. So yeah, I did genuinely feel for Chelli, because, you know, he got nothing in the corner that I could make out. I think his dad thought that he was winning, and he wasn't winning. And it's like he was having to figure it out himself. I think after 9 rounds, or 8 or 9 rounds, we got in the Chelli corner, and he kind of turned around and he just looked straight down the lens. And he didn't look like a beaten man exactly, but you could see. It's always like you could see inside his head as to what he was thinking was kind of thing. And at the end of the fight, his dad seemed to think that he'd won, and then when the decision was announced, he seemed to think that he'd won. And at no point was he winning, because Jeffers started well. There was no point during that fight where he was winning, but I don't think he was really. And he knew he was doing it by himself. Like I say, he figured it out as he went along. But no one told him. Like, the person who needs to tell him didn't tell him.
Yeah, it's a funny old dynamic, as is often the case with father and son, trainer and fighter situations.
What's his name saying this should be banned, isn't he?
Tim Bradley.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Did he box him?
The Hall of Fame Tim Bradley.
Oh, well, they're giving him away now, aren't they? And he got a point, maybe. You know, there's been some massive successes.
We've spoken about this quite a lot, haven't we, over the years on here. Yeah.
But anyway, I thought Jeffers was brilliant. And I understand what you're saying about he looked fat. He looked flat, Chelli.
Jeffers made him look like
but
that.
I think what Jeffers really did, his judgment of the distance was fantastic. So I think Chelli has to dive into attacks.
Yeah, and he couldn't, could he?
So, and if you get close, he's strong and he'll throw you around, and he works away close, and he flurries, and then he gets that momentum and that sort of like bit between his teeth, and then the onslaught starts. And if you're too far away, he's got like a almost catapults himself into you. But Jeffers was threatening. But not you couldn't dive into your attacks. So he was close enough to be not too close so you could hold him or grab on or work away really, but he wasn't far enough away so you could like dive into attacks. Yeah. So I think he got the judgment of distance really well, and also he didn't panic.
No.
He kept nice and tight. So when Chelli tried to jump into attacks, he stayed nice and compact, and he punches in that. I make this up, but I think it's a thing like a rectangular box. You know, from your head to your belly button, and he punched on the line. So he rather than Chelli sort of throws his shot, so his body will move with the punch. As he throws his shots, it'll bring his shoulders forward. But what Jeffers was doing was turning the shoulders to throw the punch, and same with the hook, turning the body to throw the hook rather than throwing the arm and letting the arm move your body over. And it's a difference with that. And you might get more leverage and more power doing it the latter, but the technique, and you're not going to get there first. Where if you stay nice and controlled, and it's a difficult thing to do in the fire, just stay calm. But you stay nice and calm and close, and you just see that gap. And when Chelli throws a little bit wide, he makes a big gap for you, big rectangular box, and you just go bam straight down the middle, bam like that. And he did that all the time. He did.
He was really compact, wasn't he?
He was fantastic. Actually,
really
I thought
efficient.
Those types of fighters are the ones that you surely keep Chelli away from. The fundamentally guys, the guys who are like well schooled, well drilled. That's surely.
Yeah, but they just think that
Cody Davis boxed him.
They just think he's just going to blast through everyone. See, that's why. And if they'll knock him out, he outworks him. And there was a point that there was a worry that about this fight for Jeffers, because I looked at him, I thought he's neat, and he sort of dictates the pace. But Chelli's going to make him fight at the high. Well, Chelli makes you fight at a pace that's too high for you, doesn't he?
He just looks to overwhelm you, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But what I didn't judge was and I should have known with Michael Jennings in the corner, because he's a brilliant boxer, is that he got that judgment of distance right, that he couldn't get that momentum of firing through.
Yeah,
And he couldn't get close to be physically a bully on you either. I think he just got that spot perfect.
They did it perfectly.
Yeah.
And when you watch Jeffers like beforehand, you look at it and you just think you couldn't watch it and say, oh well, he isn't capable of handling Chelli, but you couldn't watch it and say that he was either, because he's not been in with somebody like that. And I think that was kind of what I was struggling to describe really about the demeanour of Chelli 2 or 3 rounds in, is that he realised at that point, I can't just overwhelm this bloke. That's not going to work. So what am I going to do? But the Jennings, I mean, they, as a pair, Michael and Dave, that gym's flying. You know, they've got some real good amateurs in there. They won a couple of British youth national titles. A couple of lads, Leighton Birchall and Joe Turner. Michael's son, Mikey, I think he didn't win. He was second at 71 kilos. You know, they're amateur and pro. They're really doing the business there, and they're quite quiet, but they're ambitious. You can tell. You know, they love it, and they know what they're doing. You know, that was a massive win for them all. And his post-fight interview was great. You know, he just slips out a couple of F-bombs, forgot all his sponsors' names. It was tremendous.
Forgot the use of English, so he's like a Welsh guy, really.
He did.
At the end, he sort of just stopped in and walked away. In the end, okay.
And that doesn't really give you an impression of who he is, because, like I said, I chatted to him for quite a long time, and he's confident. He's
you could see the confidence actually in the way that he didn't. That you have to be confident, not to panic. Yeah, like and in your biggest fight of your career, let's be honest. If this is for you, it's not the title. Though that belt will mean everything to him, whatever the belt is. It mean everything to him because this is his first one, I think. But I mean, it's you're on Sky. You forget. You forget how big. I mean, I was on the undercard the first time I was on Sky, and I think the first time I was on Sky was like Eubank's World Tour, and he came to Cardiff, Belfast, Germany twice. That was his world tour. But it was world tour. Yeah. If EasyJet don't fly there, we're not going. And this might be before EasyJet were even around. Anyway, but that was a huge deal for me. I was on the undercard. It's just massive. I'm going to get on the thing. You know, it's just going to get on for the TV. I've been on bigger bills before, but they didn't. That was when it was on Threshold TV, and they only showed one fight. But it was like, I'm going to get shown. It was just a massive deal. Like box Kelton McKenzie, I remember this so well. But for him, he's boxing for some sort of title. You know, he's right up on the bill as well, isn't he? You know, right up there. Yeah. To not panic and the confidence of just and believe in your camp and what they've been told and all the rest, and your ability to just to see stuff. I thought you were stand up. That for me was. You should say Jonas's was the stand up performance, but I think that was.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him now, because he's managed by Kev Marie, who does quite a lot of business with Boxer. They've got a good relationship.
He's having a good little spell at the minute, Kevin Marie.
He knows his stuff, doesn't he, Kev?
They might sign him. They might sign him up. But he's having beaten Chelli. I mean, they can make a strong argument that he should box Heffron next, because logically that makes sense. There'll be others who will just think, hang on a second, my body of work is superior. It should be me. But that's what they'll be looking to do. But these stories they're always good fun, aren't they? And he's from this mad.
What's Callum Simpson? Is he a super middle?
Yeah. They're from this mad sporting family whereby his two siblings, Cameron and Emma, are both pro cyclists. And he was telling me how he didn't tell me at all. Michael told me, and Michael Jennings. I said, anything I need to know about this guy? And he said, well, did he tell you about the fact that he's this ultra running?
Oh yeah, you
mentalist
said in the commentary.
100-kilometre run in 11 hours from his house to the Lake District and back. Like a 200-mile bike ride, stuff like that. Yeah, no, this is stuff that he does for fun, So, and he had the whole of 2022 out with a shoulder injury. So,
out. He was running. That's why.
Yeah. Like Forrest Gump.
He's gone out. Where's he gone? He's about 200 miles.
Every time someone called him for a fight, he was just busy on the roads, running on the roads. Yeah. Anyway, moving across to Sheffield for Dalton Smith versus Sam Maxwell. Another correct prediction here on the boxing show. It's rare, so we have to shout about them. Barry, going to come to you first. I think we all kind of felt that Dalton Smith maybe needed something of a performance in this fight, and I feel like we got that. And certainly the stoppage win over Sam Maxwell was something that we've seen plenty of.
The only issue I got, I picked the round 6, and he should have stopped doing round 6.
I had round 7. I was going to bring it up, but
That's
I must have had 8 then, did I?
Yeah, we had 6, 7 and 8.
That's called Dalton's a fucking idiot. Right? He could have stopped him in round 6. I don't know why he didn't.
Yeah, he I don't know why he didn't. Last 30
he should have.
seconds.
No, he should have.
I had a quiet word with him before the fight.
He must have. He was that dominant that he probably could have done that. To be fair. I thought it was a really good performance. The performance that we wanted from him. He's never going to be this guy who comes through and just blasts you out in the round. He has to pull you apart, and that's what he did. He made I think the first jab that Maxwell threw, he got caught. He got met with the right hand over the top, and that from there on, he was just well. I don't want to say scared because he wasn't. He was so well aware of making sure he got the punch right when he threw it that he never threw any, and that allowed Dalton just to work him out, move on the target, throw when he wanted to. He did get caught with some good shots, to be fair, because Maxwell can punch, and when he committed to the right hand, he had to take a few himself, and he got buzzed a few times, but for the most part, he was just pretty good. I thought he was electric, really did. Great finish as well, by the way.
It certainly was.
Punched
Andy,
right through him, didn't he?
Your thoughts on Dalton Smith?
Yeah, it was, as you said, it was exactly what we kind of prescribed for him last week, because he'd had a couple of performances where he got the job done, and that's always the most important thing. But he did need exactly what he gave us in front of a home crowd as well, and he's won the belt outright, which is, if it fits within the framework of your career, is always something that fighters want to do. But you've got to be able to do it quick if you've got the kind of expectation on you that he has. I'm just really interested to see what they'll do with him now, because moving him up through those kind of interim levels, you won't want to rush anything with him.
Gets hard now, doesn't it?
It gets hard now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's had some good activity in the last year or so. He's won the British title outright now in less than a year. But of course, he has two, and particularly one very bad cut, which looks as though it's probably going to keep him out now for the remainder of the year.
Maybe not the worst thing.
They were his fault as well,
As long as it
actually.
heals up okay.
Really? So go on.
I think the first one was, not purposely, but I think he's the one coming through with the right arm and he got caught. I think the first one, or the second one, I think it was the first one. Yes, it's not just the way it works, but I think it was him who, I think he squared his foot up when they clashed. And you always got to break the fight who's coming forward, haven't you? To be honest, if they clash of heads, even though it's accidental, it was usually his. It's usually the taller guy who gets the worst of it because the smaller guy coming up. But yeah, the first one was a really bad one. The second one was something that had opened up previously. I think it was an existing cut, bit of scar tissue that opened up. The
And they weren't bad.
The
one on the right eye. I think now they're probably, unless some fantastic opportunity that can't wait until early next year comes along. I think that will probably be the last we see of Dalton Smith this year. He has spoken, Andy. He mentioned about winning the British title outright. We're all kind of big advocates. Again, if it fits the timeline of going the traditional route, he's looked at Petitjean for the European title at welterweight. But that's something that may have to wait next year. But that seems like a logical step for him.
Yeah, it does, because that's a very, very winnable. That's a very winnable fight. I think he was. Has he rematched? Is it Enoch Paulson?
Not yet. Not yet. Paulson vacated. Petitjean's now got it, and now he's going to have to fight Paulson, I think, is the way that
there's something. I couldn't quite figure out what actually happened there, because I was looking into it for a previous fight, I remember. But I had a little look at the pair of them, and you'd be surprised if Dalton Smith didn't win that fight. But that's a great title to win, I think. It's probably not, as Barry said before, it's probably not as prized or as valued as it used to be, which is a bit of a shame. It depends who you beat, obviously. I was going to say,
it depends. We've said it in the past, haven't we, where there's like the very, very good European champions like David Avanesian, Sergio Garcia, when Garcia had it. That's like a European guy who can mix it with pretty much anybody at world level. Might not always win, but you would have no reservations putting somebody like a Avanesian or a Sergio Garcia in with a world level guy, and they wouldn't be embarrassed, No,
but it's always a good route to go down if you can just get it done.
And some of you look back in your career and you either glad or regret not fighting for him. I think that's the truth.
Yeah, you're never going to.
Or whatever fight you get, you do look back and go, oh, I wish I would have done that.
What next for Sam Maxwell, Barry?
I don't know. It's hard to see where. I think he's found his level now, and I think it's unfortunate because someone as good as he was, I think he found his level before this fight. That's the truth. But before, which is fine. Being British level is fantastic. It is. You be a British champion, which he has been, and then a Commonwealth champion, and all, they're great titles to have. But I think because he was such a good amateur, that they thought, and a lot of people thought, maybe we all did, that he might get to world level, world honours. But that's not going to happen for him now, I don't feel. And how old is he now? 32,
I think.
Yeah. but he's not a young 32.
No, we said about this, didn't we, on the preview show, that he potentially left some of his best years in the amateurs.
And I said about his chin, didn't I, in the last one? I don't think his chin's the best. Maybe that's just wear and tear, and that's the worry now. You go younger guys now, and your eyes just, you go through, your training camp's good because you go through the motions, you can still punch hard, you're punching correct, you're doing everything right, but it's the vision. You don't see things as clearly, and it might only be a millisecond, but that's enough for someone like Dalton Smith to hit you with a big right hand, or that's enough for someone else to get in close and hit you with a body shot, whatever it is. And once that happens against younger, fresher guys, then you're starting to get hurt. And if your chin's not great, if you've got a granite chin, then you get knocked out. So I think where he goes, it's a hard situation for him now, because really he should just retire. Good career, not the one he wanted, but he'll look back and he'd be proud of it. But you don't feel that way. I guess I didn't have that situation, but you probably don't feel that way. You probably feel you have a lot left in you, and you'll go down to the gym and say, I'll just train and see how I feel, and you'll feel great in the gym. I almost came back when I was like 31. I boxed at my last fight 25. I was like 31. I was going to come back, genuinely going to come back. I was going to gyms and sparring people, and I was looking fantastic. I could punch now all of a sudden, the thing that I lacked. And then Robert Smith changed it. I spoke to Robert Smith, and he said, I want to go for my license. He said, you can if you want to, but why would you? And I thought, what the fuck's he on about? Why would I? I'll do what I want to do. Who are you to tell me? But I slept on that. And he was right. Why do I? What am I doing it for? And it was because I didn't know what to do, because you lost. I wasn't going to be a world champion again. I was lucky the first time. I wasn't going to win loads of money because I'm not a big puncher. I'm not 6'2", and I'm really good looking. A lot of people don't see me as the same as me and my mum look at me. But so it was, what am I going to do? And what am I doing it for? Because I just don't know what to do in my life. That's all it was. I was lost a little bit. And I decided not to do it, and it's because of him. I thank him for that. I know he gets loads of stick, and so he should a lot of the time. But he saved me from maybe, from God knows what, from maybe being a unified world champion, Robert. Thanks. But more than likely, getting battered at domestic level. Yeah. And against younger guys who, because as much as good as I was in sparring, when the edge is there, you need that focused vision. I think he might have just lost that now.
And the things as well.
And I made it all about me, which is pretty good.
That's fine. But as a former world champion, you would have been served up, wouldn't you? Like in the nicest way possible. He's like Barry Jones, a former world champion, and
they'd have to look it up, But
that's what awaits Maxwell now. Because I know that they've tried to get him for Adam Azim before, and they would still be trying to get him now.
And they'd offer decent money, innit?
They'd offer good money, and then the idea is, like you say, it'd just be, can he stop him quicker than Dalton Smith did? And then you can play that game. But I wouldn't, if I was close to Sam Maxwell, I wouldn't want to see him fight Adam Azim.
Yeah, they said there was a Matchroom, obviously, the kind of the post-fight BTS stuff, and there was a video of Dalton Smith in the dressing room, and Dalton Smith said, "You'll be back," and he went, "No, that's me done." And obviously, fighters in the dressing room can be different. A couple of weeks later, they heal up, and we've spoke about it in the past. But I wasn't really right for that because I didn't do my runs, or I had a little injury, and somebody said, "Well, you've been offered this to fight Adam Azim," and I can do that, and it's the age-old dilemma, isn't it, for retired fighters? There will always be. It's like the old Western films where there's always one more job for the retired train robber.
It's not so much that you go for the fight and you go, no, it is exactly that, sorry, because you'll think, if I beat him, because I know I said with boxers, you have to be an eternal dreamer. It was a bit the biggest liars on the planet. You'd lie to yourself, so you got to dream big. Because where you start, I say this all the time, most boxers, where they start from, where they end up, it's a hidden route. You don't, like from where I come from, to be, there's some boxers where they come from the gutter to be millionaires and famous and all the things you just thought, when I grew up, how did I end up here? Like, it's unbelievable. But you dreamed big and it's worked out. Not for most people it doesn't work out, for some of them it does. But so you lie to yourself and you think, well, if I beat Adam Azim now, which I think I can, because you haven't really been tested, I can punch, all of a sudden you think, it's like you thought with Dalton Smith. Well, Dalton, I'm better than Billy Allington, that's what you thought, and I can punch much harder than him, and if Dalton, and he could be hittable, and if Dalton boxed against me, I'll batter him. And and you could see, from that, the Dalton Smith and the Allington fight, Allington did really well. Struggles against a prime Sam Maxwell, but he's not prime, and Dalton Smith wasn't like that. He was better. So I think it's I hope he doesn't come back. If he's retired, he had a fantastic career. You'll look back proud, but right now it'll be unfulfilled, and that's the worry with boxing and sports. You're always unfulfilled. You speak to everyone. Speak to Joe Calzaghe, I've mentioned him, and Pivot, but his career should have been better. Roy Jones will say he could have been better. All of pick any boxer's name, and it could have been a better career. We're sat there envious of their careers, or I certainly am, and they're thinking, well, it wasn't the career I thought it would be. So it dragged on. I think he should retire.
That's all right. So let's hear from Dalton Smith, who I caught up with in the dressing rooms after his win over Sam Maxwell.
Getting a British title in under a year, it's good going, especially with the new rules. 3 defense, 4 fights in it, 3 defences. I've got to get the skin time to heal, but it's not a problem. It's each little thing like this. It's learning things, and I've never been cut where I couldn't see, and that as soon as that cut opened up, it was going in the eye and I couldn't see. So in my head I was just like, these lessons what are going to test me, and I honestly couldn't see through my right eye. So I just were like wiping it, stay composed, and bosh, the shot come.
Last quick couple from me. I do appreciate your time. When you are back in the ring and you're all healed up, now you've won the British outright, European title next?
Yep, I'd love that European title next. Keep knocking them off. European, go international, world title eliminators. And of course, I eventually want to get the big one. But, let's get these traditional belts. Growing up watching the traditional fighters, wanting them belts, and I'm slowly ticking them off. So eventually we'll get there.
So that was Dalton Smith talking about a potential European title tilt up next. We kind of mentioned it beforehand. We mentioned it in this, where there was, people had sort of cooled a little bit. It doesn't take an awful lot for people to cool on prospects nowadays. We're going to talk about Jaron Anderson soon. We've talked about Jaron Ennis, who his last fight, people kind of seem to cool on him. But now we had that win, Barry. And it is, Eddie Hearn said after the fight, it makes our job much easier. Show a highlight reel knockout that can be beamed around the world. But now he's got that win. Obviously, he wants the European title next. The kind of post 140, Josh Taylor era at 140 pounds, it should be open up some avenues towards world level down the line. How far do you think he is from there?
A little bit, because it's still very difficult at the top.
Yeah.
To be fair, it's like that every weight. Forget about all these loads of titles around. Actually, most weights now at the very top, they had, you used to be able to pick a few easy routes. There's no easy route at his weight, to be honest. I think he has picking up people who've been at that level but not quite that, that former champions who have passed their best, just to build his profile the other side of the pond, I would say, maybe. But who? He's a hard fighter to fight. See, I like on that before. I thought it was a great performance because you seen him, pick a guy apart and then knock him out. So it wasn't like a 1-round blowout, but he's not that sort of fighter. You've seen a guy, just pick apart. He was comfortable. Everything he did worked, except for a few little things. Took a few good shots, but took them well, and then got the easy finish in the end with a lovely right hand, which he landed before. So he'd already set that up. He knew that was when he threw it, it could land. Yeah. So European level would be the ideal route. But if they can't get that, then you try and pick up some of the guys who are just falling off, and I don't know who that would be off the top of my head.
Andy, what about Jorge Linares?
Yeah, I'd be keen. I'd be keen to see that. Linares he's kind of a fascinating guy, isn't he? He always has been. We got to know him quite well when he came over to fight Crolla those 2 times, and he's somebody who's always had a really interesting record because he's got that brilliant combination of being really, really good, but also vulnerable. You always feel like he is vulnerable, and that's a while ago now, obviously. But for that spell, he was right up there, wasn't he, with some of the best fighters in the world, I think, at the time. And yeah, I'd definitely watch that. And I wouldn't feel like it was some kind of leap, especially for Dalton at this point. Would have been a little while ago, but not anymore. And I think you could really sell that too.
He's lost his last 3, but they've come in decent company. Devin Haney, of course, for the WBC lightweight title. Zal Abdullayev, former world title challenger. Zora Hamazarian, not seen him box, not massively well clued up on him. But Haney and Abdullayev losing those fights in that stage of his career. Again, a good barometer. Both of those fights went long. Haney went the distance. Abdullayev, he stopped him in the 12th round. But somebody like that, if not the European title next, somebody like Richard Comey, maybe there's a little bit. He just got stopped by Jose Ramirez, didn't he? He's naturally smaller guy. Stylistically, you think that's a good fight for Dalton Smith?
I do, but I reckon that's the
one after.
Yeah. I think because that puts you right there then, doesn't it? I mean, unless that's where they want to go, unless they're looking, but by the end of the middle of next year, we're fighting for the world title if we can. No, like, how good's Romeo?
Rolly, I mean, he's going to fight Hara Davis. Well, exactly. Potentially, anyway.
How good's Hara Davis? We still don't know. You look at Hara Davis, you think he's so technically flawed, and then you go, but then even though he lost against Jack Catchell, he didn't look. It was a close-ish fight. I remember doing it. It was a close-ish fight. And I thought it was terrible to watch, but I think he didn't use his jab, did he? He did that quite often. But anyway, you think so he might genuinely be world level, but you just think. How good is that Romeo? You looked alright against Tank Davis, but then Tank sort of let you do stuff before he beat you up. So it's hard to judge it, isn't it? So that's a world title shot. Would you be worried about Dalton Smith boxing one of those right now? I don't know. Would you be scared stiff if you put Dalton Smith in with O'Hara Davis tomorrow?
No.
You wouldn't, would you? You wouldn't. You'd think about the power of Davis and the awkwardness, and he got those massively long arms, and he uses it quite well. But the fact that he doesn't use his jab allows Dalton Smith to get in there. Technically, he can move around the target really good. And you've seen O'Hara Davis having a real tough fight with McKenna. Again, there was an argument who won that fight. But so all of a sudden you think, is he already world level? If that's your barometer for it. But then you think he's way off Prograis and Cambosis and
Lopez,
Lopez,
people like that,
even and Josh Taylor's and Catchell's, he's not near them at the minute.
McKenna would be great if he hadn't moved up to welterweight.
Dara Foley,
Dara Foley. Oh, Dara was a great fight actually, because and Cuddy's great to come and he'll come and have a go as well.
Sell it.
That's that's the fight. Well done. You've done it. Mate. You've done the fight. That's the next fight for him. It's a sellable fight. He'll make Dalton work, but ultimately Dalton should get to him.
If he can stop him, Jack Catchell didn't stop him. Obviously, Jack Catchell had him over, but didn't stop him.
But Jack's a different fighter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they're both patient, but in different ways, aren't they?
Jack's on throwing combinations. Like Dalton will let his hands go in flurries if he has to. I think that's the difference.
Okay, elsewhere on the undercard, Barry, going to come to you for Pat McCormack. Who was in electric form, stopping Tony Dixon in 4 rounds. Could have got it done a bit sooner, but didn't rush his work, but still looked very, very impressive.
I was ringside for his last fight in Newcastle. I literally fell in love with him. I've seen him before, but I fell in love with him again.
But it's the Italian.
Yeah. And the Italian screamed about the stoppage, but he got. I think the referee did nothing wrong there because he got battered. He was getting absolutely hammered. That was another thing about maybe your corner should save you before the referee has to do the job. But you watch McCormack and you go, yeah, he's good. Like that, like Saturday, he's good. But those last 2 rounds, you go, he's more than good. You watch him go, no, he is good, and you're not disappointed. You're just going, they're right. What people are saying, he's really good to watch. Yeah, he does a lot of good stuff. But then all of a sudden, he sort of like you don't sort of figure you out. He should be just going through what he can do, doing all his good work, beating you, make sure he's doing enough work. But then once he feels comfortable, those last 2 round and a half, or whatever it was, you just go, whoa. Like when he really puts his foot on the pedal, like he can hit you where he wants to. And he's not a knockout artist, but every punch is spiteful. And he's so accurate, and he's just really good. He got and he's another guy. His anticipation of a punch. Like, anticipation is great. All great sportsmen have it, don't they? Footballers know when to make the run and all things like that. But he's like that. He almost knows when the punch is coming, so he throws before you throw. Like he must see you tell. And some people just drop it from the eye to the chin, but he gets it before you throw it. He's like, whoa. He just knows what you're going to do before you do it.
Yeah, it's having that anticipation,
when
seeing a couple of moves ahead.
And but he shows that more in those last 2 rounds. He really showed it. Like there was a different level to how he boxed in that round and a half before the previous rounds. He just went. He seemed more focused. Like, I'm warmed up now. Watch this. And every time he did something, he'd make you pay for it. But then he's making you pay, stepping in with it. But before he just tap you with it, now he's going bam, and then coming and then just nicking your space and beating you up again. And he's good. What do you do with him?
Well, that was the big question after the fight, and Andy, going to come to you and ask him. He's sort of in a similar position as somebody who we didn't talk about, who boxed this weekend, Ben Whittaker, where they're kind of at a stage in their career where they've got, all the talent in the world seemingly, but getting the right fights to get them through. I feel like Pat McCormack after this past weekend. I mean, I'm not, with all due respect to Tony Dixon, I'm not really too sure what he'll take from that, considering his amateur experience and his pedigree going into the paid ranks. But where do you put him next? Where does Pat McCormack go next? I think, do you look at your not fringe world level guys necessarily, but sort of fringe European level guys? Because I don't see, with all due respect, Pat McCormack boxing for a British welterweight title. I think maybe he kind of...
I don't mind that fight, though.
I don't mind it,
but
I don't really think that happens. I think it's a good fight, but I don't think it happens. I think the way that kind of politics and what have you, I think he probably goes around that. And
you're not fighting him.
Yeah.
You're not fighting McCormack. If I'm Esserman, I'm not fighting McCormack. No chance. I mean, he'll take the fight, but I mean, if I was looking at Esserman, I'm going, you're not fighting him, unless it's just stupid money, because that's no good for you, that fight. Also, I know I can rush him, I can make him work.
So who does he go with next?
I mean, it is hard, isn't it? Because he transcended to that next level as an amateur, whereby you weren't looking at him and thinking, when he went to a Europeans or Worlds or Olympics, will he get a medal? You were thinking, what colour?
Yeah. And
that's that next step when you're absolutely elite at that, in amateur boxing. And we haven't had that many of them. We've won a lot of medals and we've done really well, but particularly something like the World Championships, which is we've always found harder than the Olympic Games. He was unlucky in the final there. He got a silver. There was a head clash. The fight never really got going, but he was just... And it was frustrating for him having to wait that extra year, as it was for everybody because of COVID. But I think he's 27 now, is he? Or 28 maybe.
28.
But I remember he would have been 25, I think, when the Olympics finished, if they'd been in 2020. And that just seemed like amazing timing. And it's all been a bit odd with signing with Probellum and then obviously having to get himself out of that. And now he's with Matchroom. So there's not been the fanfare around him to anything like the same extent that we've had with Whittaker, for example. But he is just really, really good, and it's as simple as that. I mean, how far away he would be from someone like Avanesian, I wonder. I wouldn't say next, but and Avanesian's not going to want to fight him anyway. But how far away is he from that? Like you said, a really good European champion. I wouldn't necessarily say he's that far away from it.
I think Avanesian would want that fight. Actually, I mean, because he can't get a fight.
Good money, and he'll
anything.
I'll
bash this kid up. He's so inexperienced.
No, you might be right. Actually,
and it's a hard fight. But I would. He's with the right people, I think, for that division, because you can just pick what he's had doing now is just picking up people that Ennis has beat, and Vergil Ortiz has beat, and trying to just go there. I again, you don't want to rush him too soon, but I don't think you can hold him back too much either.
The name that popped into my head this past weekend was Sebastian Formella.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, he's a guy who's kind of charted by going the distance against people, isn't he?
He would beat Formella.
Yeah, I mean,
so easily.
Yeah, but can he stop him?
Yeah.
Can he do a job?
I feel like he can.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
And if he does that, that's a win that does carry a little bit of...
Yeah.
Conor Benn, I'd put him in with.
Yeah, that's a question for another day.
No one wants to talk about Conor Benn. No, but I mean, that's what...
Fight him on the moon.
and domestically, I can't. I'm drawing a blank, but I mean, I wouldn't worry about anybody on top of my head.
Michael McKinson.
Yeah, but again,
if you're McKinson, you don't want to fight. Not that McKinson will fight anybody.
Yeah,
but what's in it for McKinson?
And also, you worry that for McKinson to be effective, he's going to have to really, really be negative, which is sort of his MO anyway. But I mean, McKinson, he just he commits to an attack, he jumps into his punches. But I don't think as good as McKinson's been, and better than what people think he is. To be fair, he is. But no, not McCormack. But McCormack hadn't had that things that we haven't seen as a pro yet. Somebody able to drag him into deep waters. Going the distance is one thing. Going late in a fight's one thing. Having someone, elbow you, butt you, hold you, you hit him and he just laughs at you. which was most of my career. But I mean, but all those things that that he hasn't experienced yet. Sometimes like we talk about now with Jared Anderson, won't we soon? But I mean, things like that. All of a sudden, the people go, there's a flaw there, or that wasn't as good as it should have been. He hasn't gone through that little stage yet. But I think we need to put him there now. And I don't know who that maybe would be for Mella, if he could take him the distance. But I don't see how he does, to be honest.
No, I agree.
I'd check him. Where'd you go then? I don't know where you starting to go.
I mean, I think
Custo Clayton or something like that.
Potentially, I think if you went
too far, eh?
If you went for Mella, then after that, I think you could do Avanesian. So I think if you're looking after McCormack, you'd think, yeah, we could beat him, but it's Avanesian. You wouldn't want to put him in with him.
This is where you want the ratings in front of you, don't you? Just have a look.
I got him here.
Yeah, I know you have, mate.
I'm not trying to serve Tyrone up to people, but. McKenna is a prize fighter. He would take that fight. I reckon he would, if the money was right.
Yeah.
And he's never been. Tyrone's been around kind of. He was never going to fight for a British title, but if you want to look at it in those terms, kind of British title level,
look who he's boxed.
A bit above. You look at who he's boxed and what's happened.
Well, Harder Davis was it? No,
Jack Ketchell.
No, but it was a close fight. That was, Harder boxed the world title. He'd been in with Regis Prograis. Yeah. Obviously, that wasn't a close fight. That was a horrible fight.
That was a clear win.
There, weren't we?
Yeah.
But it's still, he's a guy who's been in with the very best.
Yeah, he doesn't want to mess around.
And also because the way he portrays himself and how the way he fights.
Yeah,
it's a marketable fight to make as well.
You want to get him in the ring. You're gonna need something that's going to really get his juices flowing and add to his bank account. He's not all about that, but it's just that's what this is about.
I got it. Pat McCormack versus Blair Cobbs. Sign me up.
Okay.
Sign me up. That's it. It's not in the rankings, but sign me up for Blair the Flair versus Pat McCormack.
I just think McCormack McKenna, in the nicest possible way, you've got a pair of lunatics there.
Yeah.
And that could be a lot of fun.
That's an interesting thing because I heard the reputation of Pat and like in the amateurs. But when does that play into his career? Because at some point in his career, his personality or whatever is gonna seep in.
I think it'll be a good thing though, because no one's ever questioned his dedication when he's in the gym.
No, what if someone getting under his skin? All those things I said shouldn't happen. No,
I don't think it's ever been about that with him. It's just that he would every now and again go missing for a bit.
Yeah, turn up
but
a
not
bit late.
But not for that long.
Yeah,
and he's moved away from Newcastle to train, and I thought that was really important.
Yeah, well, there was the sort of infamous video after he was eliminated from the Olympics.
Yeah,
he was enjoying some.
But if you're not going to blow off some steam after getting an
Olympic silver
medal,
when are you going to do it?
A 5-year cycle and COVID and all the rest of it. When are you? And no one has ever said to me anything about him slacking or taking his eye off the ball or not being totally committed in the gym ever.
Okay, right. We're going to move.
I put him over the state side now though. I started putting
Blair Cobbs.
Against Blair Cobbs. Someone said to me recently.
Okay, right. We're going to move on and talk about the heavyweight offering that was this past weekend from Toledo, Ohio. Going to go to the president of the Jaron Anderson fan club first, Mr. Barry Jones.
Great fight, great.
Not necessarily what we were expecting to see.
No.
But
what we
an entertaining heavyweight fight, and certainly something that's good for this stage of his career. I felt.
And you look back, this is so good for him to go the distance and to be in a fight where he got caught. He got hurt a couple of times, seriously hurt actually. He was wobbling and legged in the fight. He got caught as well, but he coped with it. And let's not forget that he didn't panic. And against a real tall. You forget how big Martin is, don't you?
He's a unit, man.
I know, because you're up against Joshua and people like that, you don't see it. But I mean, he's a massive lump, isn't he? And he sits on the back foot when and for a southpaw, that was hard for Anderson. The one thing, my biggest criticism of Anderson was he didn't figure out that southpaw was the best place to be, because he can switch him, he can box at both stances. Maybe defensively he's not as good as southpaw as he is as orthodox, but all the successes he had was when he turned southpaw. And I don't understand why he just didn't maintain that, because I think he might have got a stoppage, or he might have been even more effective. He won the fight clearly, of course, and for a lot of stages in that fight, I thought that Martin was not negative, but just staying safe. But then as the fight went on, he started insert himself a little bit more and be a little bit more positive and make it a little bit of a rough ride for Anderson. But you look back, I thought he was going to blow him up when he wanted to do it. That's the problem. Is I oversold it massively. I thought he gets rid of this guy when and where he wants, and he couldn't do that, which is great for his development. But there will be, I know, but see how he copes with it, because there's been a big build up about him. People like me blowing smoke up his ass. But no, all of a sudden, no, he's going to have like people saying, you couldn't get rid of Charles Martin. Ortiz, who's like 75 years of age, got rid of him.
Joshua stopped him in 2
Joshua
rounds,
stopped him with ease. Joshua, that robot who's rubbish. No, that's what he is now.
Yeah, that's what people say.
Apparently he's crap now.
Obviously, different time in his career, but puts that win in perspective slightly, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it does. Yeah, but all of a sudden now he'll have a few little questions about how good really is he? Because like I still think he is the future, but maybe not now. So that's fine. I think it's good. It's a little bit of an eye opener, but I still thought he boxed really well. In stages, he was fantastic. Not one dimensional, but I think he run out of ideas now and again, and that's something I haven't really seen, because we haven't had a chance to see it. I thought because of the way he is, he's athletic, and the way he moves his body, I thought that his mind was as kept up with his physical attributes, and maybe it's not quite there yet.
Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think sometimes you have this fight where the brakes get put on you slightly, and it's never a bad thing, because that hype train can move really, really quick when someone's undefeated. There's no limit really to the pace it can go at, and that's great because you can build somebody. But at the same time, getting the rounds in, as dull a thing to say as that might sound, it is a good thing. And it wasn't like he really struggled. It was just he couldn't quite, like Barry described, couldn't quite find the answer within the allotted time. But the rest of it went well too, which is important, because I think they got about 7,500 in there in his hometown venue, and that's good. You know, that's a real healthy crowd. They'll definitely go back there.
And it was loud as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we talked about it last week. You know, you look at what they did with Crawford. Wilder wasn't there as top rank, but same thing with Wilder. You know, it's great to build that fan base in your home city. So I think it was definitely still a plus. It's definitely still a step forward. And like you said, I've had a few of these recently on top of the bills where a fight has been what a fighter needed for their career development, but it hasn't been the ideal spectacle, if you like, or what people would really want for TV, which particularly heavyweight is, you know, a knockout basically, isn't it? But I did see over the weekend as well, I don't know if this has been totally rubber stamped, Jalolov has signed with Top Rank.
He has, yeah.
That's a good move for him, isn't it?
I like that one.
Because he was with Pro Bellum, and then I was waiting to see what he would do, where he would go, and yeah. So now, I mean, look how well stocked they are with those two.
Torres Jr. as well.
Yeah.
But then he's a good fight. He's good to watch, isn't he? But they're going to keep him safe until he wins. He's gone to the Olympics, isn't he?
Well,
I'm not sure.
No,
he's not.
From what I'm told, he's not.
No.
I think the World Championships in Uzbekistan.
Every super heavyweight's got like that. Amateur.
Yeah. So what happened was,
Delicious Orie.
I go back to train. I go back training. You know.
When we were in Dubai last March, and he was on those cards, I sat down with him there, and I asked him sort of like straight out, "Is that you done with the amateurs now?" And he said yes at that point. And I kind of thought, because I knew that the Men's World Championships the next year were in Tashkent.
So you wanted 200 grand.
There you go. And they doubled the prize fund. And I saw him last December at this kind of individual WSB relaunch, and he was boxing there, and he would have got like 30, 50 grand, something like that. So he goes to Uzbekistan and he wins gold, home country, all the rest of it. But now he seems fairly adamant that is it. They've got another Night of Champions in Thailand, Iber, in a couple of weeks' time. I wouldn't be amazed if he kind of appears on that as a kind of farewell, but from what I'm told, he will not go to the next Olympic Games. Which you mentioned, Delicious Orie, and just on that subject, he's qualified for the Olympics.
Yeah. We were going to do an end bit on that.
Okay, let's wait. Let's wait for that.
Yeah,
which you know, and he boxed some good guys in that tournament too. You know, he really did. Got past a strong fighter from Azerbaijan. So congratulations to him, because getting that done first time of asking is huge. Rosie Eccles qualified as well. And I tell you that she beat Amy Broadhurst to get through. And that's a massive win, because Broadhurst last year won European, World and Commonwealth gold. And it's a quirk of COVID. They're not normally all in the same year, but no one's ever done that. Like, it was in the space of a few weeks. I saw her at the World Championships. Southpaw Baby Canelo, she's called. She's a really good fighter, so that was a massive win. Charlie Davison, now a 2-time Olympian. And for Ireland, they've got 5 through. So Kelly Harrington, defending gold medalist, obviously, she's going back. Aoife O'Rourke, Michaela Walsh, pretty sure it's Michaela's second Olympics. Yeah. And then 2 young lads I saw at the European Under-22s a couple of years ago, Jack Marley, a heavyweight, and Dean Clancy, who I really like the look of when I saw him win gold in Italy. A couple of years ago, I thought he looks like a real good fighter. I think he's 20. I think Marley's not much older. So there's 2 more global events to come next year before qualification is complete. But that whole scenario now seems a lot more encouraging than it was, because with all this carry on between IBA and the IOC have just completely backed the new organisation, World Boxing, and made it clear to IBA and anyone who is under their wing that they cannot get you to the Olympic Games. Never mind what they say, they cannot do it. So it's going to be fascinating now to see what countries, because IBA previously said, if you box outside of our jurisdiction, then you're dead to us. And they've been throwing a lot of money around, obviously. Yeah. So what are Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Cuba, just to pick out 3 real big nations who really value Olympic medals, what are they going to do now?
But also value IBA's money.
Yeah, probably. That's it. It's not an easy decision.
It's
not an easy decision. If you're one of the smaller federations and you don't normally qualify anyone for the Olympics, then you're not going anywhere, because Umar Kremlev has been touring the world funding this, that and the other over the last few years to make sure that he would get re-elected as president. But now it's definitely going to be in Paris, and the IOC seem happy that, let's say, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Cuba decide to stick with IBA and forego the Paris Olympics. The IOC seem fine with that competition maybe being under strength for that reason, and that for me is a very encouraging sign long term. But I think they feel like the dominoes might start to fall, and that we'll be okay, and it'll be in Los Angeles, because Los Angeles want it, the IOC sports committees want it, the ethics committees had a problem with IBA, but they've made that totally clear.
American
now.
TV will definitely want it.
Of course they do, yeah. LA, LA, De La Hoya,
it's massive. Yeah.
The Olympics is going to be like the 86 Commonwealth Games.
Could be.
Where no one turned up, and they was, I think, like, you'd have like just Wales, England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland all fighting. You get like 2,
loving it. What, Cuba not coming?
Like Wales get 2.
There you go.
You get 2 medals in one weight and all that.
Well, I mean, the Russian athletes.
It was like they'd be like that's the idea. The WBA watched it.
What are they going to do? You'd imagine what they're going to do, because IBA is basically a Russian-led organisation now. But you look at big European nations who maybe haven't been showered with medals down the years, but you wonder what they'll do. China, Japan, South Korea, men and women, they're a big force, and they just got decisions to make now.
But Jared Anderson,
I was going to say, just back on Jared Anderson. I always love a little segue here on the boxing show.
It's usually me though. Well done, mate.
That's all right. Yeah, we're all having a go this week. But yeah, just back on Jared Anderson. I think, I don't know. I felt like we said previously, I mentioned the performance against Jerry Forrest, and he blew Jerry Forrest out in a couple of rounds, so nobody ultimately says anything. But I felt like in that he showed a little bit of kind of youthful exuberance, a bit green in stages. He had Forrest hurt, and he went in for the kill, and he got clipped with a few shots that were coming back against him. And I felt like this weekend against Charles Martin was good, was healthy, provided he learns the lessons from it, because I did feel like there was quite a few technical issues following around the ring. He wasn't cutting the ring off. Yeah. I felt like when he was going southpaw, what you were saying earlier, he hurt him at the end of the 3rd round. He was a flash knockdown with that right hook while he was punching with him. 4th round had a good round, but then defensively he wasn't able to get out of the way of the left hand, even from the southpaw stance. And obviously both measuring up as southpaws, the left hand was there, and he got hurt really badly in the 5th round, hurt again in the 12th round, and it was kind of those rounds 7, 8, 9 became like quite back and forth and things like that. So I mean, it's good that he got the rounds. We spoke about this recently when you went over to do the show in Europe, where fighter gets hurt, yes, great, box ticked, but also the flip side of that is, he got badly hurt twice by Charles Martin, who's not renowned. He's a puncher, he can punch his way, he's a heavyweight, they can all hit. But it may just slow the jets a little bit on Jared Anderson, which might not be the worst thing in the world if he can learn the lessons from them.
If you go, sometimes you're the forward momentum, and you can walk onto a shot as well. That makes it more dynamic when you get caught with it. I wasn't too sad about the whole thing, to be honest. I think you want to see the more explosive. You want to get excited about heavyweight, so you don't want to ever see anything slowed up. So you want to get and I thought he would have, and probably should have got rid of Martin earlier. But the fact that he never, and you look back on it all, and you go, well, it wasn't too bad. And also, he showed a good engine. He dictated the pace, mainly most of the time. Yeah. But you're right. I think like I was trying to say about his natural abilities, but his boxing brain's not quite hasn't caught up to speed with what he can do physically, because he couldn't figure out that southpaw was better for him. Couldn't figure out that he had to cut the ring off. He had the foot on the outside all the time. I just think that was just naturally with the way they were stood. But I still think that he wasn't really thinking. He was just thinking about throwing the punches, which is what you should be doing. But I mean, you've got to try to think, how do I break this guy down? How do I suffocate? How do I stop him from moving? How do I stop him from... He's leaning back, so you get him on the rope so he can't lean back any further.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, Martin's probably a bit craftier than I give him credit for as well. Yeah, I think he boxed well. One question I do have, and it's not really something that I've got a strong opinion on either way, but we saw in the build-up to the fight, kind of that brilliant clip with him and Roy Jones Jr., but you got the tears and the pressure and the this, and then you see like the clip of him in the change room afterwards where he's sort of really down, and all fighters can be down after wins as well as losses, and the pressure that's on him. He's kind of spoken about wanting to retire by the age of 27. He's had a fight there where he's kind of not set the world alight. Are there any warning signs that we can take from there, like psychologically, mentally coming through? Because it is, it's a lot of pressure for anyone to have.
Maybe, but it shows a vulnerability. I think Roy Jones. When I see a clip like that though on camera, like with Roy, and you go, "But I'm 23," and I tend to think that's sort of like make believe. I don't, what I mean? It's like I worked on the X Factor security, so I know everything's on TV. You see is a lie. It's all a lie. All a lie, really. But you tend to think that's sort of set up to look like he's really vulnerable, because you want to get in depth. You want to know they're not like.
It looked like that to me.
Yeah, you want to see.
But then I think like when you factor that into the, because like he got through. He didn't ever look like he was going to get stopped. But there were, when he was buzzed, there were a few warning signs, and then after the fight, he came back in there, and it's sort of. I don't know whether or not it's because beforehand we'd all kind of built him up to being this monster, kind of the next one coming up. But he looked like a young kid, really, after the fight. And I didn't really think about that before fight week. But when I saw the Roy Jones thing, I was thinking,
has he been hurt before?
No, not as a pro.
These are big moments.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking into this kind of thing in fairly minute detail at the minute, and it's a very odd thing to happen to you. He'd be able to tell us much more about it than I ever could, but it's a very disorienting thing. It's a very disorienting thing. You feel like you're invincible, and although you know that it is going to happen to you at some point, I don't think anything can really prepare it for happening. Ali talked about the near room, and there's the strange things that happen in your head when you get hurt. You go into this fog. Fighters have described it as to me. It's like being underwater. Everything slows down. Your head's kind of clear, but your body's not really working. It's just an incredibly odd thing to happen that you can't really prepare for, and it spooks people. It scares people. They get through it, but they just think, "Fuck." So this is what this is really about, because until it happens to you, you don't really know. And at heavyweight, I can see how that. In the immediate aftermath, I can see how that might freak you out. I mean, you've got to get over it if it has, but it's not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing, because I think even if you've been boxing your entire life, the first time you get hurt by a big man wearing 10-ounce gloves in a proper fight, that's a whole new level. For the first time, you're being made aware of what can happen in there, and that. I mean, that's, it's not a small thing, is it?
No, it's not. It's again, you don't know how, and you don't know until it happens. But you can try and prepare for it as best you can, and you look back at it. You're enough if it's the first time you ever record anything. But you don't know how you're going to react, and it can be different for different situations. I've never been wobbly legged, but I have been like my head's been. I have seen all that, like the lights and the all the whiteness and the flashing lights and stuff like that. And I have been. Like, for a second, everything slows down. You think you looked at the referee. As an amateur, I looked at the referee once and went, "I'm okay." But I looked back on the video and it's like that. So the referee, I've said I'm okay, and the referee's just gone, "What are you on about?" He didn't see it. Didn't see the shot. I've also cried. I got my first standing count as an amateur. I only got 2 standing counts. I got hit with a right hand by an American, and Ramos the third, his name was, which was pretty cool. And I complained and moaned about the referee, and I wasn't like that sort of fight. Well, no, what are you on about? Like, and then I watched it back on VHS. It was a cassette. He almost snapped my neck. They should have stopped the fight. He hit me with the right hand. I might have said this before. But I hit me with the right hand over the top like that, boom, and I've almost hit the floor backwards with my head. He hit me right back, but I never felt that. I'm not sure if he knocked me out, then I woke up. You know what I mean?
Just the flash.
Yeah, no, I did.
That could have happened.
I'm like, well, I probably concussed, but you don't know you're going to react, and also, like, sometimes you do the right thing, and like, you know, you get hurt, but the wobbly leg thing, I'd never had that. I don't know how you cook. He was wobbly legs.
Yeah, he was like, and it wasn't. It's first.
So I tend to think
just
it's
one shot either. Like, he got hurt a few times.
But he might have been clear enough to know he had to hold. Some fighters don't know where they are, and
that's something that he did do in the 5th round. He got hit by the first left hand. He sort of took a step back, and then he went into hold, and then that's when he knew that he was really hurt.
Yeah.
So it's good survival instincts from that perspective. But what you've said there about, you know, not having it happen before, and if you're not prepared for that, and you don't know, like, it may not be the case at all, but going into it, you might think, oh, well, Charles, I'm going to blow him out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then poof, oh God.
It's very hard to kind of get your head around something happening that's never happened before. I don't think, however logical you are about it, it's still, there's a disconnect there, really. I was talking to Ben Whittaker about it last week, and I just said to him, do you worry about getting knocked out, for example? Which he said no, which is the right answer, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't think about the fact that you can get hurt in there. And he said that he picked up these drills off the Cuban national team whereby you mimic being hurt, basically. So you spin around on the spot for 30 seconds.
Yeah, we used to
one
that,
time
yeah,
looking through the tip of your finger to the ceiling, one time through the tip of your finger to the floor, or you do a load of forward rolls for 30 seconds. You get back up and then you shadow box. And you try and get everything back together as quick as you can, basically, with your coach standing in front of you. So it's just interesting that someone like him, they'll do what they feel like they can, which is never, you can't replicate it exactly, but you do what you feel like you can to fight through that fog and get your
I was told to do this with your feet. If you ever get knocked down, like the big shot that knocks you down, to go like this with your feet. Try and get the blood pumping. When you go back out, because usually people stand up too quick, don't they? Yeah. You get up and you try and get the blood pumping back into your legs, so you're a bit more steadier. Yeah. It never really had to work. I just stayed down for longer.
Well, Fury did that, didn't he? He says about that knock. I think both knockdowns. I think the one at the end of the first fight, but also maybe the second one in the third fight. He stayed down because he was waiting to be. He needed to give his legs every chance to come back, because he knew that if they're not, and you stand up too quick and you stumble, then it's over. It is like, I'm not going to go right down the rabbit hole, but it is a really fascinating subject, because I remember talking to Corolla about it a while ago.
You should write a book on it.
I remember talking to Corolla about it a while ago, and you get these different scenarios whereby, with him, when he got knocked out by Loma, his head was clear, but his body wouldn't work. So he's pitched forward onto his face in the middle of the ring, and he's literally thinking to himself, shit, like, this must look horrific. Like, but why won't my legs work? Why
the
can't
Mike
I
Tyson
move?
clip,
he was just.
There's the Mike Tyson
thinking
clip.
clearly,
Crazy,
but his
that?
body wouldn't respond to anything he wanted it to do.
They interviewed Tyson after Joshua Ruiz, and he was like, his head's okay, his body fucked up. That's it. Literally that.
But I knew, I only got knocked down in my last fight, but I knew enough that my head was clear, or hurt. Some of the shots that don't knock you down, ironically, hurt more than the ones that do. Because I got hit one time so hard that I took a knee, because I didn't know. It's weird. See, I don't know where I am, but I know I shouldn't be there. Does that make any sense? Yeah. I knew enough to, if I don't take a knee now, I'm going to get knocked out, because I can't see properly, but I can see. So I can see, but I can't understand what's happening.
Yeah, you're aware that you're not there.
It's total contradiction, constantly.
Joshua, in that, this is the last bit on that, I promise. But Joshua against Ruiz is just a brilliant example, because we all remember that bit in the corner where he says to Rob McCracken, why am I feeling like this? And people translated that as, there was something wrong in the build-up or whatever. No, it's because he was buzzed. He was concussed, and it never happened to him before. And he couldn't. And on that night, he just couldn't get it back together. It's not like he didn't try. He kept getting up, but he just couldn't do it.
Right, we are getting pressed for time. So before we move on and look at this weekend, Barry, going to come to you first. Who next for Jaron Anderson?
I was all like, I put him in with Ortiz now, the guy who beat thing. I don't know.
Is Brazil still going?
I think for the right price, probably. Yeah.
I think it's one of the something like they're on that
A Jagba?
Yeah, I still think
We
that'd
spoke
be-
about that before.
Yeah,
didn't we?
that kind of top rank. You know,
but now
last chance saloon for a Jagba.
But now
wouldn't
it's
it
a different prospect. Before
If you're a Jagba, you're probably looking at it and thinking, if I land my right hand,
be? It's a great way back in for him.
people will see that because you just look at the negatives, never the positives, and you'll so he can be hurt. You don't think, oh, actually he's being hurt, but he actually
but he can recover.
he
and
can
he can-
recover.
yeah.
But you'll think, oh, I can punch harder than him. I'm going to come forward, and I think that'll make it better for Anderson if you're coming onto him. And I think it'll make you play. I think, yeah, a Jagba, something like that, a Jagba. It didn't matter because this time last week I put him in with Frank Sanchez, but I think that one I get him back on track. I think he gets a good finish. I'm still all in with Anderson, to be honest. I am, but it was good to get a reality check for all of us. So I love him, but I still cheat on him.
But I do really like that Jagba fight because, and I do think it would be very top ranked to do that because I'm not saying they'll have cooled on Anderson at all, but they might feel like, okay, well, if we make that fight, we'll find out. We'll find out if he absolutely is what we still definitely think he is. But let's give him a Jagba, and the Jagba will be super motivated because if he loses that fight, then that's probably him in top rank finished.
And if he wins that fight,
I tell you what I did think about Anderson because he's only 6'4", but he's not the massive big as heavyweights.
that was that was one of the bits where I felt like at the weekend where physically I felt Charles Martin looked the physically stronger guy, and he was pushing him back, and he was able to kind of just have his way with him a little bit in the clinch.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I always thought, but I thought he's not the biggest of heavyweights in this generation. I've thought this a long time, but I thought his athleticism would be enough to get him through always. But maybe that was a little sign that maybe it might not be, because you forget how big these guys are, and he's athletic and he moves his body well, and he's loose with his shots. He's like a 90s heavyweight. He's loose. He's not all cut up. I thought that was good because it gives him he can fire off any angle. But also, there was a massive notice of how small he was. To
The
Martin.
physical strength.
Yeah. And you know that might mean he has to learn to engage his brain more, because he should have. There's things there he should have seen and he didn't see. But you put that down with his young inexperience and all that stuff, and he has to learn it. He's learning on the job. Let's be honest, because he was a good amateur, but he wasn't. No, he didn't. He was a youth amateur really. So, there's still a lot to go. But I'm all in still. He's still the future, man.
FA Jagba. Another one that was kind of mentioned across social media is Big Charlie Takam. Anyone for that?
I mean, he's still bang up for it, isn't he?
Beat up Tony
He's still
Yoka.
very ambitious.
Yeah.
He's still very ambitious.
But the size is that's no good, because it doesn't. We don't learn anything new. He needs to be boxing big guys all the time, because ultimately when he gets to if he's going where he's going to be, they're all big.
Well, Arslanbek Makhmudov was on the undercard this past weekend, got a stoppage win. I think like that. I think it's probably dangerous throwing him in with somebody like Makhmudov on the basis of what we've just seen against Martin. Big lump, physical, can punch with both hands. And Jagba kind of, it's not. He can punch with the right hand, but he's not a big, heavy set heavyweight who can physically manhandle you. That fight's going to be a distance fight. So some interesting options for Jaron Anderson next. But let's look ahead at this weekend as we see the return of certainly 2, if not 3, maybe 4 of the future stars of the welterweight division. Barry, going to come to you first. It is boots time. Jaron Ennis returns against Romain. Villa defends the coveted IBF interim world welterweight title against Romain Villa. I think Ennis, on the back of his last performance against Chikadzian, it's a name that I'm glad I don't have to tweet this weekend again. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of the way the world works, isn't it? He went the distance last time out, and all of a sudden, Jaron Ennis isn't he's not this, he's not that. But an opportunity this weekend against a good opponent in Romain Villa to get himself back on track. Not even necessarily back on track, but
Yeah, well, he's just got to be active, haven't he? That's all you want from Ennis. I think it's a good fight for him. Actually, it's a hard fight, but I think stylistically, Villa's going to come right at him. What else can he do? And I think that'll work for Ennis. What I like about Ennis is his left hand's fantastic. I think for me, he has one of the best jabs, because he stabs with it. Again, he moves the feet with the hand, so he's in and out with it all the time. And then because he'll take a big step and he gets low with it, he can jab to the body really well, and he'll jab up and down with it all the time. But he got natural power then, so when you do sort of commit, he's judging the distance all the time. Then he can just smack with that right hand, and you hit. I think his judgment of the distance and everything, it all works off the jab. but judgment of the distance, fantastic. And I think someone like Villa is going to come right at him. I just can't see how he doesn't walk onto a big shot.
Yeah, I think stylistically it's a good fight for Ennis.
Yeah. But a good fight to watch as well, because he'll have a go. And I think, but ultimately, I think he gets bashed up. I think Ennis does a really good job, and everyone's raving about him. But we always say, he's the next big one. He'll be 30 if he wins. He'll be 31-0 with what 29
26
knockouts,
knockouts or 27 knockouts. Yeah,
and
he's got 27, maybe 20.
Well, but you can say the titles have been held ransom for a fair bit of time. To be fair, by the two stars, but and I'm not saying he hasn't been knocking the door, but it's a typical PBC thing. Though they leading away at the minute for making competitive matches. Let's not forget that. But where their fighters are so inactive for so long, why he should have been there by now. He should have had the test. He should have had that world title shot. He should have had it. He should have now. I was you get the 30 and not really.
Well, yeah, he had
the right test to get there.
Yeah, I mean,
he passed with flying colours.
His last few fights, if you kind of have a look through, I mean, he only had one fight last year, but he's had Chris Van Heerden, Sergei Lipinets, Thomas Delorme, Christio Clayton, and Karen Cherkadzian.
I mean, level-wise, it's kind of the same person 5 or 6 times in a row.
Yeah, and then and also a lot of them are naturally smaller guys who've moved up a bit, like Lipinets is a 140 pounder, Delorme, I mean, he's not a welterweight either. So yeah, he's kind of there or thereabouts. But you know what it's like, particularly at welterweight, when you kind of get in position. We're seeing it not at welterweight, but like Richard Riakporhe kind of had good fights, and now he's got to that world title level. It's kind of becomes a lot more politicised than the way up, and it feels like particularly at welterweight with all of the money that's there with Spence Crawford, kind of the will they won't they. Obviously they're going to box at the end of July. He was never going to get a chance to go and box an Errol Spence or a Terence Crawford before they had that big fight. So, that fight is going to happen, or is happening at the end of July. You would think that even if they do the rematch, there's a two-way rematch clause in there, that it's not going to be for undisputed the second time around. So the IBF, you probably get elevated.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Without being against him, that's the thing. That's a good thing for him. But he gets an opportunity. I think he wins a world title. I don't think he beats Spence or Crawford unless they really lose a step. But he's good enough to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean,
especially against Spence, or stylistically against Spence, because Spence is more upright. The people forget how good Spence is up close, but still, I think I think he's really good. His jab's fantastic. The feet move with the punches as well, and he has real power. Let's not forget that. A guy who can box and has natural power. It's almost a complete article. He's not quite that, but that. You usually get a puncher or a boxer. We try and put you in little boxes, but he can do a bit of both, and not a bit. He can do a lot of both.
He can do a lot of both. Both stances. Yeah. There's not much that he can't do. And he's going to come to you, Romain Villa, obviously on the back of that win over Rashidi Ellis. Do you give him any chance of springing the upset against Boots Ennis this weekend?
Not really. I think he will bring what he always does, but no, I don't see it. I don't see it because Ennis has got. He is in this kind of holding pattern, and it will be frustrating, and it can sometimes lend itself to a kind of flat performance or a bit of an underwhelming one. But as you mentioned, people feel like he had one of them last time out, and it is frustrating for him because he will feel, like Barry said, that the opportunity should really have come by now, but that should focus you in even more, to be honest, because he's come all this way, and it will be 31 fights after the weekend. He's just got to stick it out for a little bit longer. And it's funny because we waited ages to get more undisputed champions crowned. We've always had undisputed champions, but if you're talking about the 4-belt era, as people like to call it, we didn't really have too many at all. I mean, Hopkins did it, and then Jermaine Taylor won them all off him, and
didn't really happen then after that for a while, did it?
We didn't have any for ages. Cecilius Brækhus did it, and then I think Crawford did it, and then we've had a spate of them since then. And yes, it's great to know who the number one in the division is, but you can really easily see the problems with it as well, which is that if you're not really made to defend them, and sanctioning bodies will always want to keep their belts in the fights that make the most money and seem happier to wait for those, even if they're by no means guaranteed, than keep their belt more active, then you have this situation where everybody's just waiting around. And it's far from ideal, and that's where he is. But hopefully, after the fight at the end of July, if something's not undisputed, and it wouldn't be unless there was a draw or it ended early, then the sanctioning bodies don't have to keep their belt in that fight, do they? It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens after July 29th, because if they do the rematch, then you'd imagine that the governing bodies will probably try and find a way to have all of their belts on the table anyway.
That's the problem, because they want to keep them in the fights that make the most money. But a fight like that, again, it's not going to happen for at least another 6 months.
Though. Why didn't you have like a
Boxing News belt?
like an interim title belt?
We already have one. Jaron Ennis got one.
Oh, they?
Yeah, he's the. This is one of the things this weekend. I don't see him having to contest a vacant title. He'll just get elevated. He's boxing Romain, who's number 2 of the IBF.
You can have a King Charles coronation belt.
What about some like a regular title? You could make your champion a champion. Then
you can have a champion in recess, maybe.
Yeah.
Have things
or
franchise
King Charles.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely don't have enough time for this. Let's jump over and preview the other welterweight bout this weekend. Fight I'm really excited by. It's been put back a couple of times, I think. Vergil Ortiz versus Eimantas Stanionis. Legitimate 2 top 10, if not higher, welterweights, Barry. And a fight that I can't really see how this fight's not going to be a brilliant fight. I mean, I live to regret it. We don't always get everything right, as we've kind of discussed.
Well, unless they get too close and smother each other's work.
I just can still see them.
You got 2 guys with a high guard who come forward. That's pretty much what you got. Both different ways, but that's what you have. 2 guys with a high guard who come forward. Both got really good jabs. I think Ortiz is obviously the longer fighter. But it's got war written all over it. It really has, and it'll be down to who takes a better punch. I think moving on the targets, it's going to be Stanionis can probably move on the target better because Ortiz is just route 1, isn't he? Pretty much, but it's behind technical stuff. He does work behind the jab. He does throw long shots, jab. And he throws a good uppercut through the middle, which will help him. I think against the smaller guy or the shorter guy for sure. He is short, isn't he?
A little bit, yeah. Both big welterweights though.
Yeah. But it's a good fight. When it boils down to it, I just can't see if you can say this for either one actually, but I can't see that if Ortiz can hit you continuously, which I think he can, or he doesn't get you out of there. That's what I would say. I think blocking, using the high guards as defense is brilliant. But against someone like him, you literally got to make him look for the target constantly, and I don't see how that works out that way. I don't think Stanionis can do that. I think he can put pressure on you. I think he can move his feet really well, but I don't think maybe I got him wrong. I don't think he moves his head as good as he can. I think he'll try and block shots with the gloves more.
Yeah,
that's a really hard way to go about it.
Against Vergil Ortiz, against anyone who can punch. Certainly, he got a shotgun jab. That jab that comes out and it's poof. It's not just he doesn't touch with the jab. He really it's like a right hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for me, like the Stanionis fight against Radzab Batayev was
all right.
The Batayev fight was a really good fight. But it was a fight you mentioned there where he's catching a lot of shots and they're staying in there and it's going sort of blow for blow with a guy in Batayev who's like good fighter, but he's not Vergil Ortiz. I think this is a fight where I wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset. It might be somewhat controversial, but Vergil Ortiz is a very good fighter. We still don't know how he is at the weight. He's had to pull out a couple of fights with rhabdomyolysis, which is not a joke. That is not that's not stubbing a toenail or doing your hand even in sparring. That is a very serious condition to be pulling out of a fight with.
What is it exactly?
So rhabdomyolysis is where you basically...
I thought there was a name of a fight there. You pulled out of...
So when you train and basically you get it from overtraining, and you overtrain, and then your muscles start to release toxins into the bloodstream, and it's a very serious and potentially life-threatening illness that you can get from overtraining and overworking. And people have pointed at the weight potentially being a problem. Ortiz has said it's nothing to do with weight, it's just overtraining. Robert Garcia, when they were together, he said, he's not only the hardest worker in my gym, he's the hardest worker in any gym that I've ever been in my whole career. And for somebody like Robert Garcia to say that is quite the compliment. So it is very serious, and we've not seen him in the ring since he's had those issues. And Stanionis is the type of guy, very fundamentally sound, good jab, decent power. He doesn't really do anything outstandingly well, Stanionis.
No, but if you give a gap, he'll throw that left up right.
Exactly, but he's a tough man. He can punch, he can box, he's got a good chin, he goes to the body well. I think this is a really, really good fight, Andy.
Yeah, he is that kind of bloke, Stanionis, where if you're not quite where you should be, then he could beat you. And that always makes for a great match because... you always want to see both fighters bring their absolute A game. I do think it would take that for him to win, for Ortiz not quite to be, at the level of performance where we've seen him or where we kind of expect him to be. But that's really interesting, that about that condition he's been suffering from.
Sorry to jump in. Rhabdomyolysis is a serious medical condition that can be fatal or result in permanent disability. Rhabdomyolysis occurs when damaged muscle tissue releases its proteins and electrolytes into the blood. These substances can damage the heart and the kidneys and cause permanent disability or even death.
That's why I'm short, because I trained to as a kid. I was definitely
it's a very serious...
Yeah, I mean, really, that's kind of... I mean, it's all related, obviously, but it sounds like that's just not if you don't really allow yourself to recover.
It's
I'd imagine there's a few.
I might be old-fashioned. It just sounds like an excuse.
But no, it is. It's not a joke. It is a very serious thing. And Stanionis is the type of guy. I mean, we've seen Ortiz in the past. We kind of mentioned already about Jaron Anderson. He had his examination when he boxed Kavaliauskas.
Yep.
He was hurt in that fight. He was hurt more than once in that fight. He had to fire back, and he showed all of the kind of the hallmarks that you want to see.
They're not dissimilar characters, are they? Kavaliauskas and Stanionis.
No,
they're both Lithuanian, aren't they? Not everybody from Lithuania's the same. I'm not saying that.
Angry Lithuanians in the comments.
But that style of fighting, you do get quite a similar styles, don't you? Particularly like for former Soviet countries, they do.
Well schooled, tough,
and
decent punches.
And what they can do quite well is under that. I talk about it's just like a theme of everything recently. Coming out of my mouth is in the pressure moments they can see clear. So I think forward momentum, which he needs, Ortiz, can also work against him, because if he's firing through big long shots, which he throws long, and that's a massive plus for him, and that's why massively I give him the edge over in this fight. But if he overcommits and squares his feet and makes a mistake, I think I can see Stanionis just like timing it lovely, bam, or left hook as he comes forward, catching him, and then he could be in trouble. But I still think, I still go back to think if Ortiz can hit you often enough, which I think he can in this case, if you haven't got great head movement, I just can't see how you can beat him.
Yeah, it is.
And you got to knock him out. You got to fully commit to I can hit you. You can be hurt. I can hit you. But he's taking a massive risk. You can't do what McKinson tried to do as well. Jump in and out of attacks. You got to be committed. And moving around the target will be good. And Stanionis can do that. But I just think you need better head movement. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a fight that I can't see.
That's the fight of the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely the fight of the weekend. And one that I can't really see.
I said fight of the month. Forget about Crawford and Spence.
Yeah, a few good ones. Fulton in a way. There's another decent one. But we'll get round to that when we have a little bit more time. So we're going to go round after a very for us successful week
solid
of prediction.
Weekend.
It was decent. Yes. We all got all of the right winners. We just we're a few rounds out on Jaron Anderson, but that's fine. We'll blame Barry for that because of the hyperbole. So I was going to go points, but anyway.
Another word I got to look up.
Andy, going to come to you first, starting off with Vergil Ortiz versus Eimantas Stanionis.
For the reasons just debated, I'll go late stoppage. 10th.
Ortiz by stoppage?
Yeah.
Ortiz by stoppage. Barry?
Yeah, 7.
7, okay.
Yeah, I know. But I think Stanionis will, I can't say his name, so I'll just say it quick. I think he'll try.
Yeah.
I think that might, I just think he gets caught too often.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go for Vergil Ortiz points.
Nice. I
points.
see that.
Good spread there.
Yeah. I think Stanionis is tough. I think he's well schooled enough. And I genuinely think this is 2 of the top probably 7 or 8 welterweights. I think Stanionis is like the lower end of that, so 8 to 10. But I think it's a really, really good fight.
Because he put a marquee name on his record. He goes up there, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. He beats Vergil Ortiz. He has an arguably a better win than anybody apart from the winner of Spence Crawford come the end of the month. Right, going to go back around this way. Barry first for Jaron Ennis versus Romain Villa.
Ennis. I can't see any other way. When though? 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Ennis. I feel like he is maybe in that zone at the minute though, where he's not really going to want to take too many risks and just make sure that he wins. So I'll say points.
Okay, I'm going to go for Ennis. I'm going to go for 6 rounds. Yeah, I think Via's tailor-made for him.
I wish I went.
Yeah, I think his last fight against Ellis, I think flattered Via a little bit.
Yeah.
Ellis was happy on the back foot, but he didn't have the shots coming the other way, and I think Ennis will.
I think his stoppage is probably more likely.
And Ellis with too many jabs. And you think and you just think, Ennis's jab compared to
I just think there's a chance that, like I said, he is in that holding pattern where you just kind of, a little bit like Sonny has been recently, although obviously he is a world champion, where you're waiting for something and that could translate into just making absolutely sure you win, which doesn't mean that you can't stop him, but...
Well, we look forward to seeing it, hopefully, anyway, Jaron Ennis versus Romain Via. There's still no UK TV for that, but Uncle Al, you got my number. Let's see what we can do.
Does he have your number, though?
No, but people close to him do. But anyway, story for another time. Coming soon to Boxing News. But anyway, that's all we've got time for here on the Boxing Show today. Thanks very much for you guys for tuning in, and of course to Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clark for stopping by with that expert insight. Let us know who you think is going to win this weekend: Vergil Ortiz or Eimantas Stanionis, Jaron Ennis versus Romain Via. But from me, Rob Tebbett, from our panel of experts, thanks very much for stopping by, and we'll catch up with you next time.